Welcome to the WWE podcast with Aiden Willis. Another week, another episode, and this time it's going to be a little bit different. What I've been speaking to Matt about is instead of doing just a general analysis, a general sort of like week review, I'm actually going to be reviewing Smackdown now. So Smackdown's going to be my show. So I'll be reviewing each match, each matchup, each feud, bringing you some of my own ideas and some predictions, and again what I want to see in the future, along with any rumours that are floating around on social media or any that I've just heard in general. So that will be good. I'm super excited to get started. Smackdown's actually one of my favourite shows. I actually prefer it a little bit more than Raw. I prefer what they do over there. It has dipped in recent weeks, but I think it's on the incline. So let's get started and see what I think of Friday Night Smackdown. So it started off with Goldberg coming out. Obviously, he's now the Universal Champion, which I'm not keen on at all, and I'm sure loads of people have already said that. If you've listened to Matt's show of the Saudi Arabia Super Showdown review, you'll get some insight onto what we all think of that. Now, SmackDown started, Goldberg came out, Universal Champion, he was in the ring, on the mic, doesn't really say anything, his vocabulary is so limited, I don't like him in promos, it always has been limited, and now his in-ring ability just matches that. He basically just stands there and says, "Who's next?" And then Roman Reigns comes out. That's predicted, that was speculated. I'm sure as soon as Goldberg beat the Fiend, we all knew what was happening, what was it going to be aimed at, a WrestleMania match with Roman Reigns. Now, this is just an uninteresting feud for me. There's no build-up, the promos will be poor. I'm sure it's going to be predictable for as far as the winner in terms of Roman Reigns. I think that's where it's going to be going to. Roman is a good performer, he's a good in-ring performer, but Goldberg isn't anymore. You can see he's lacking in so many different areas now. So if anything, it's going to make Roman look bad, which only has a negative effect on what WWE has been doing with him for the last year. So Roman Reigns has come out and said, "I'm next." Now, and that was it. They had a bit of a stare down, then he went again. And then WWE announced that this would be the official match for WrestleMania. It hasn't got any build-up. It just hasn't got any meaning behind it. It just seems so forced. And I can only assume that there's going to be minimal effort going into the feud in terms of a build-up. But because granted, they are both huge stars. However, to have a popular feud and a match, you need the fans to get behind the rivalry, the superstars, either as a heel or a face, and the match itself. But as both cannot, for the life of them, do any decent promo work on the mic, and they only say a few words like "who's next" or "believe that." See, it's not actually the battle of the spear, which some people are saying online. It's the battle of the two-word taglines. Like, neither one of them can say any more. But away from the negativity of the match, I'd say overall I'm actually excited for the match on paper because it's a Hall of Famer versus a future one. So it's always a dream for fans. It's always a dream match, especially at WrestleMania. Similar to the AJ Styles versus Undertaker. I mean, you've got Roman Reigns and AJ Styles, which will be the good in-ring performers. They're young. They'll be bringing the energy. And then you've got Undertaker and Goldberg, which they are past it now. So it'll be interesting to see. But I can only assume that, and I can only predict that Goldberg versus Roman will have... It's going to be a very botched match. And if it's as quick as the matches that Goldberg's had in the past, it's not going to go down well with me, and I'm not going to like it. But you never know, they might prove me wrong, and it might actually be one of the matches of the night. So we'll have to see. It's getting into WrestleMania season now, so anything to do with WrestleMania is always a positive note in my book anyway. So then we had Bayley versus Naomi. Now, Bayley and Naomi were setting up for the match. Bayley paused it, sort of cut the match short, just momentarily. She got on the mic and cut a very, very short promo, and then actually introduced the return of Sasha Banks, which is amazing. It's needed, and it gives the SmackDown Women's Division such a huge boost. The crowd's reaction said it all. She comes out, the music's good, she looks good, her character's good, the personality is straight away across again. The match itself was actually quite a quick match. I mean, it was a strong match in terms of the in-ring ability, but ultimately it led to an attack from Sasha Banks, leading to the disqualification of Bayley. And then Lacey comes out to help Naomi, which is a little bit weird. It didn't make a lot of sense, but it's more to do with the hatred and the rivalry towards Sasha and Bayley rather than helping out a friend in Naomi. This led to a tag team match. The classic heel things like Bayley distracting the ref and Sasha attacking Naomi. Sasha is such a natural heel. I think she's also a natural face, but similar to what I think about Seth Rollins on Raw in this current product. They have a superstar there in Sasha Banks that can swap between roles so easily that it keeps the character relevant and it keeps the superstar relevant. And I think you can always invest some emotion into it as a fan. And along with her great in-ring work. Now, I've said in the past that I'd prefer her to be the champion, so hopefully there's something they can do there. I think I'd like to see Bayley stay as champion. I know I've been going on about it a lot that I don't like Bayley as a champion, but now Sasha is back. I think it's going to give her a little bit of a boost, that she can cut some more promos, and then just the hatred that they get and the real heat that they get from the crowd together. It'll be interesting, and then it adds a little bit extra to the women's division just having a part of it, and especially with Lacey and Naomi, I'm sure there's going to be a few singles matches coming up, and again probably another tag team match, which was good. It ended in a nice move. It was Bayley was through the ropes. Naomi hits her with a kick to the face, and then performs this beautiful looking sunset flip to get the pinfall. That was a lovely little sunset flip. She's very athletic, and it's lovely to watch. So that match was actually really good. So not only did we get a good, strong match, we actually got Sasha Banks to return just in time for the Elimination Chamber, just in time for WrestleMania. So I can't wait to see what's happening there. We didn't actually see any of Alexa Bliss or Nikki Cross, so it would be interesting to see what happens there. Hopefully there's like a tag team storyline that they can get involved in, or have some sort of like meaningful storyline. So we'll have to see what happens. We then had Kofi Kingston from the New Day versus Bobby Roode, and they were accompanied by Big E on the outside and Dolph Ziggler on the outside. Now, this was a very, very solid match. I love Bobby Roode's style. It's like a mixture of technicality versus aggression. To me, it's sort of like an old school style. Like I think some of the moves, like being sort of a classic move, like some of the full Nelsons to a slam and the DDT, albeit like a glorious DDT with a higher angle drop from the air, but it's still a DDT. Then there's spine busters. It's sort of like them old moves that when I started watching wrestling, they were the moves that I loved to try with my mates on a trampoline. And I know it said like don't try this at home, but we all do. On a trampoline or a mattress, and they're like the old school moves that I grew up watching. So I actually really like Bobby Roode. There's nothing better than a well executed spine buster for me, and mix that with Kofi Kingston's in-ring work. It works very well. I mean, he's so consistent. I particularly liked Ziggler distracting the ref in this cocky, confident strut up the steps, like really getting that arrogance across. And then while Roode was outside, hurt from Kofi's onslaught, he then stood up, looked and stared at Big E, and then he turned around and kicks the steps to make obviously the noise, and then played injured, resulting in Big E being sent backstage from the ref, that he'd heard the steps being hit and assumed Big E had attacked Roode. Now this is classic heel, and if anything, the late great Eddie Guerrero made these type of stunts famous, of like hitting a chair and then throwing it to the opponent and then playing injured on the floor. It's just one of them great heel things. It's funny. It builds that little bit of hate. And I haven't actually seen something like that for a while, where I've actually thought, you know what, that this match was booked so well. And then the finish, Rude goes for the glorious DDT. Kofi then hits the SOS, and Dolph puts Rude's leg on the ropes during the pin, and then he informs the ref. Now this is again a classic heel move, getting your buddy from the outside of the ring to help out and stop the pin. And then when Kofi gets up and goes after Ziggler, he sort of looks over the ropes to have a go at him. Rude gets the roll up, and I just think it's just a perfect heel versus face finish. It was a perfect heel versus face match. And I think it was booked very well. I haven't been too keen on the Bobby Roode and Ziggler sort of like partnership, but this time it proved me completely wrong, and I really, really did enjoy it. Now there was a Mandy Rose sort of segment after. It just showed her watching on from backstage, watching the match. Now she's obviously got this thing with Dolph Ziggler now. Now what I like about this storyline, because I've been thinking about this quite a lot. Now I wasn't too keen on it at first because I didn't really like the way they sort of like ruined Otis's Valentine's Day, and that's not because I like Otis. It was just a very, very quick segment, and it didn't really have anything else after it. It was just sort of like meaningless. But as we've seen in the past, Dolph is so good, and he's such a natural with that sort of like female partner. He's been with Vicky Guerrero, he's been with AJ Lee, I'm sure he's been with Lana, I think, as well. But them storylines in itself, they're so popular and they're so good that as long as they build it like that and book it similar to them sort of roles, and having Mandy Rose as potentially a heel partner to Dolph Ziggler, that's what I would like to see. In Heavy Machinery, they were in the locker room, and Tucker was giving Otis a pep talk, saying that they're going to return to the ring next week. But I'm hoping that they leave them out of this Mandy Rose thing and let Dolph run with it, because I don't think they need to be part of it. I just want to get Heavy Machinery's popularity back by pushing them in the tag team picture, preferably without Otis's less able sort of character. I mean, they are great in ring. He does the worm or the caterpillar, but it's just good. They get over with the crowd. They're funny, but I just don't like this sort of like gimmick with Otis's character. For me, it's almost going back towards that Eugene gimmick, that Eugene superstar, if you remember back in like 2005, maybe 6. Like it might be funny for a while, but it's so damaging to the superstar in the long run, because as we know, that characters have to adapt and the superstars have to change over a time to stay sort of like relevant. Now I don't see how, again, going back to the Eugene one, once Eugene had his run, there's no way you can reinvent that character, because we've already seen it, and it's not always that simple just to come out and do something different. Now we've seen it so many times with like even Kofi Kingston. Now he's done really well to sort of like get out of his Jamaican gimmick, but that still gets mentioned, that is still remembered. It's just weird to go from like that Eugene type gimmick and then to come out as a totally different character. It just doesn't work, and the fans don't forget things that quickly. So I'm hoping they could just phase this Otis thing out, just have him just like Tucker, nice and normal. Even they could do something like Mark Henry's Sexual Chocolate, where he comes out and thinks he's a ladies' man. Like Otis could play that role with his little crop top that he wears with his belly hanging out. He could play that role really well. And that's something I would actually like to see. And Tucker, whether they build Tucker as a tag team partner or just sort of like that helper, that sort of like manager guy, I think that would be better for the longevity of their characters. Because I think if Otis stays in this sort of like, I don't want to say disabled, but it's sort of like stupid sort of character, I just don't think it's going to be that good for him. We had the Intercontinental contract signing, where it was Braun Strowman and Shinsuke Nakamura and Sami Zayn and Cesaro. Now, I actually didn't like that partnership, the trio, at first. As I'm not a massive fan of Shinsuke Nakamura, and I'm not a massive fan of him in ring. When he first got the call up to the main roster, I loved him. I loved his character. I loved his personality. But I think he's lost so much, and I've never been a fan of Cesaro. Even if people say he's one of the best in-ring performers like the recent years, for me, I'm just not interested in it. I think it's because I can't really get invested in the character, because again, he's not very good at selling his personality and getting it over with the fans. Now, I think Sami Zayn is helping Shinsuke so much. I enjoy him on the mic. Sometimes he gets a little bit overbearing, but the majority of the time I like it. And when they don't overdo it, it really, really works. Braun is also much better on the mic than he gets credit for. Braun said he's going to sign the contract as he's going to have to fight all three of them anyway. And then Sami then claims that this is eligible for a contract change and produces his excellent speech about how Braun can't go back on his word now in front of all the fans. I like the way they've done that. Instead of going, right, you're going to fight all three, they've done that quite clever. I didn't expect something like that. It was quite a clever way of including all three of them into the match without just forcing it and going, oh right, Braun's getting shafted by WWE here. But it actually worked, and then he continues to write the extras of himself and Cesaro onto the contract and gets all three members of the group to sign it. This then led to a brawl. It led to a beatdown of Braun, and then Sami Zayn produced a Luma kick. This is one of the moves that I have missed so much. I used to love it in the Kevin Owens rivalry. I just think it's such a cool move, the run, and how Sami Zayn sells it with like leaving his leg over the ropes and sort of like waits there for a bit in his like cocky sort of like, yeah, look what I've done sort of way. And then the Kinshasa, I don't really like. I'm not a massive fan. I just think it looks a bit messy. And then Cesaro and Shinsuke performed a suplex on Braun through the table that they were using for the contract signing. Now, whether Braun wins clean in this match at Elimination Chamber, or he has help, or even the little group, I don't think they've got a name, but the faction of all three of them, maybe they turn on each other, but it looks like Sami is finally ready for an in-ring return, so it might be interesting to see what happens in that, whether they're going to leave the faction together or whether they're going to split the group up in some sort of way. For me, I think now that I'm actually liking the group, I'd probably leave it as it is for the time being, but I think after that sort of goes stale and after that goes off, I think Sami Zayn should get his own run. But then again, he's been such a good manager and such a good mic worker that I think they could just leave the faction where it is. The other thing, now this isn't anything to do with actual wrestling, Braun needs to go bald. He's receding even more, and to have that sort of like ponytail thing he's got going on, he just needs to shave it off. I actually don't think he looked too bad bald. Like, I know it's up to him, and I know this is only an opinion, but that's what I'd do anyway. But it's not up to me. We had Daniel Bryan versus Curtis Axel, which is a weird one. It's just sort of like a pointless match, but then again, Daniel Bryan doesn't really have a storyline going on at the moment. For me, Curtis Axel is one of those superstars that never ever reached his full potential. He had a similar run to Damien Sandow, with a burst of popularity like when Damien Mizdow was a thing. And I love Axel's often imitated, never eliminated thing when he was attacked before he entered the Royal Rumble in 2015. He had a countdown clock of how long he's still been in the Rumble, and of course he came out imitating superstars similar to what Damien Sandow did. Now, I actually loved that thing at the time, but ever since then, he had the B team with Bo Dallas, which was popular for a bit, but them type of superstars never seem to stay popular, and they never seem to stay relevant. I don't know if it's because they can't change and keep the fans interested, but it just doesn't seem to last that long. Now, this was a mediocre match, not the technicality of it, because I think Axel is a fantastic in-ring performer, and obviously Bryan is an absolute legend in the ring. He's always consistent. But just for what the match was, there was no meaning, and I, for one, would like to see Bryan in a meaningful storyline. Whether this is anything to do with the Saudi Arabia story saying that he again refused to have a match there for his own personal views or reasons. Now, whether that is true or not, we don't know. Or just because they don't know what to do with him. But when you have a superstar of that popularity and that status, like, you need to give him at least a mid card, like even pushing towards the main card matchups. I'm hoping there's some sort of relevancy towards Elimination Chamber or towards WrestleMania. I just think it's a shame to have Daniel Bryan not being used in the way that he should be. Now we had Miz and Morrison, their shock win at Super Showdown, or at least it shocked me. I didn't expect it. I thought it was going to lead to actually the New Day versus the Usos, as they teased a little bit last week on SmackDown. That's where I thought they were going to be going. I thought the New Day would actually retain in Saudi Arabia. Now, The Miz outshines Morrison on the mic by far for me, and I would go as far to say that he should leave Morrison to a few taglines, or just a few lines in general. Maybe a bit similar to what Road Dogg does with Billy Gunn, in the DX partnership, because obviously you've got one person that is so good on the mic and then one person that really isn't. And they've got this terrible, terrible, terrible little chant. Now, coming from the UK, in my opinion, we are the best at chants. Now, it comes from our football culture, our soccer culture, and Triple H has also stated this in interviews, so I know a bit about fans chanting and singing and what works and what doesn't. Now, this chant does not work, so please go back to the drawing board, WWE. Please, creative, go back and try again. Just stop doing it. It's irritating. It's just an annoying chant. It's not going to catch on. The fans don't even do it. And I'm hoping they leave one music entrance as well and start coming out together more, because instead of being like separate, because as I said last week, I prefer this for a tag team, especially as champion. I just think it makes it more of a unit and more of a partnership if they do come out together, instead of Morrison coming first with his music, or the Miz coming first and then the other one coming afterwards. It's just a personal preference. And then there was some sort of random announcement from outside the ring of a tag team title defense at Elimination Chamber against the New Day, Heavy Machinery, Lucha House Party, Rude and Ziggler, and the Usos. Now, that's probably going to be a very, very good match. But this is the issue I have with the Saudi events, is it because it's in such a weird sort of like time frame, not the actual time difference. I'm talking about where they're positioned throughout the year. It just sort of ruins the build up to one of the most popular pay-per-views of the year. And then they have to snapshot announce these matches with no real build-up. Now, obviously, it's a title defence. It doesn't really need that much of a build-up. And because it's against 5 teams, so there's 6 teams involved, you don't really need like a storyline. You just know that they're just going to be defending the titles. Then the Usos came out for a match with Miz and Morrison. I love their entrance, from the way they come out, to the ring walk, to the music. Usos are definitely one of my all-time favourite tag teams. The consistency in every match is second to none. And they have continued to improve and adapt to what the fans want. Now, the actual match itself was extremely solid, extremely strong. Morrison is a legend in wrestling around the world, and the Usos are again so consistent with the in-ring ability. It was a great matchup to watch. Miz has stepped up since teaming with Morrison again. I think he was good as singles competitor, but I think the consistency sometimes lacks. I mean, on the mic he's absolutely perfect, hence the Miz TV thing and everything like that, but in ring sometimes I think he's amazing, and sometimes I just think there isn't as much effort going into it. Now, that's only just a personal opinion when I'm watching it, so it could be wrong. I don't know what you guys think of it, but the Usos, that new finisher that they've got of some sort of sunset flip slam from the turnbuckle, somehow having Morrison's neck land on like Jimmy's knees. You'll have to watch it. You can't really explain it. And then he lands in the middle of the ring, and then Jay performs the Uso splash from the other turnbuckle. It's an absolute spectacular move and a great way to finish. This just echoes what I was saying about the Usos adapting and improving. Commentary did call it the Samoan Destroyer, followed by the Uso splash. Now, I hope it isn't called that. I hope that was just sort of like an off-the-cuff sort of name that the commentary was making up at the time. But for a move like that, and if you haven't watched it, please go back and see it, and you'll see what I mean. That it deserves a much better name. It does deserve some sort of like nice name, like one that just rolls off the tongue, and people will remember it. Then to finish off SmackDown, or the live TV SmackDown at least, we had John Cena return. Now, John Cena's promo, what can I say? He's the best worker on the mic in the history of WWE by far for me. In my opinion, And before you think or mention CM Punk or The Rock or Kurt Angle or anyone else, Cena has destroyed each and every one of them in promo battles over the year. Now, of course, The Rock and Stone Cold are absolutely legends on the mic as well. But they have a good fan relation, and this is helped with the taglines that are used during promos, like, finally, The Rock has come back, and that's the bottom line because Stone Cold said so. It's one of them things that the fans can repeat, or they've got something that they say with the superstar in the ring. Now, it just adds that little bit of excitement because you know that you can sort of like get involved with the promo as well. Cena doesn't have any of these. Apart from "you can't see me," but when does he ever say that anymore? And it's not really in on the mic thing. It was more of like an in-ring tagline that he used when he was like just before the 5-knuckle shuffle, pumping up his trainers it used to do. But he doesn't actually have anything else that the fans can repeat or answer to, and he still has the full attention of everyone in that arena, whether they like him or not. That's why for me he is the greatest of all time without a shadow of a doubt. So he cuts a promo saying Mania should be without him, saying it's goodbye for now and he doesn't know when he's going to be back. He's saying it's the right thing to do to let future superstars have their moments. He walks up the ramp after saying goodbye to the fans. He does that salute that he does, and then the Fiend's sound hits. Now, I don't know what to call this still. It's effectively the same as the Undertaker's gong or Sting's crow noise. It's sort of like that electronic sound, and the lights go off. The Fiend is behind Cena on stage. Then Bray points to the WrestleMania sign. Cena replies with a nod of his head, accepting the challenge. And this was later confirmed by WWE for the WrestleMania match. It was announced. Now, I am super, super excited. When I first heard the rumours a few weeks ago that these matches had been changed, because of course we were expecting the Fiend versus Roman Reigns. Now, when it got changed to Roman Reigns versus Goldberg, and then we heard that John Cena would then fight the Fiend. Now, I actually see this as, in a way, of this could be a sort of passing of the torch in terms of promos. Now, there's no one better in WWE at the moment than Bray Wyatt in terms of promos. Now, maybe not in terms of like the actual ability, because I love The Miz on the mic, Paul Heyman, Kevin Owens, like Daniel Bryan, Seth Rollins. They're all very, very good. But Bray Wyatt, the Firefly Funhouse Bray Wyatt, it's like one of the most interesting and intriguing things. And Bray has always been good on the mic, even in the Wyatt family. So if they can have some sort of promo work and battles against Cena, like Cena did with Roman Reigns or The Rock or CM Punk, then we can see if the Firefly Funhouse, Bray Wyatt, can hold his own against John Cena. And how interesting would that be? It would be an absolute spectacle to have Cena in the ring and Firefly Bray on the screen, having that sort of like argument, that promo battle. They can get as personal and as deep as they want, which has happened in Cena's promos before with Punk and The Rock. Like when I remember when Cena mentioned that Rock has to write his sort of like script, his words on his wrist, and he mentions that. And then he also, in the Roman feud, he mentions that how Roman failed a drug test. So I think if they were given that creativity and that freedom, which Bray has obviously been given a lot of recently, it would just be so exciting to see how that one unfolds. The only issue is that John Cena, I'm assuming, and I probably can assume with good interest here, that he won't be showing up each week, and he won't actually be featured that much on SmackDown. So the promo battles of old might be very few and far between, just because he's not going to show up that much. The same way as Undertaker probably isn't going to show up too much on Raw with AJ Styles. So I don't know how they're going to build it. Hopefully they can do some sort of build up like I want, like what I've just spoke about. But I don't really know how they're going to do it, because John Cena's got so many different projects and so many different things on, hence why he doesn't show up much. But Mania should be really, really good. I'm super excited for it. It does seem a little bit legend heavy at the moment, with Goldberg versus Roman, Cena versus The Fiend, Taker versus Styles. But then again, who's complaining? They're absolutely legends. The interesting thing is that Jeff Hardy has been announced to return next week, which is going to be super exciting. I did actually mention that last week, that he's due for an in-ring return, or at least to show up on SmackDown. I'd actually like him to have a feud maybe with Daniel Bryan, or the other person that I thought about is actually Baron Corbin. I know we didn't see him this week, and he obviously lost against Roman at Super Showdown in the cage match, but I think Baron Corbin deserves a feud like that. I think Jeff Hardy could give him some good matches, and of that sort of like status, because Jeff Hardy's still a top performer, a top superstar. I think they could have absolutely brilliant matches together. And I would actually like Baron Corbin, because of his popularity at the moment, I'd actually like him to be given like a talk show, a bit like Miz TV, but I don't know, something to do with the fact the King Corbin, like Booker T's old TV shows. So it'd be interesting to see if that would work. I don't actually think that's going to happen. That's just, again, a personal preference. But it's all beginning to come together in terms of the build-up to Elimination Chamber, the build-up to WrestleMania. So I'm super excited. I hope you all enjoyed my SmackDown review. And, of course, I'll be back next week with another SmackDown review, some of my own ideas and everything. If you want to give me some feedback, or there's anything that you want me to talk about or touch on, give me a tweet at AidWrestle. That's AID Wrestle. Give me a message, give me a DM, give me a tweet, whatever you want. Thank you for listening.
You think you know me?